In this 25th anniversary year of September 11th, the Tunnel to Towers Foundation is honoring decades of memory, service, and sacrifice. Through its Steel Across America tour, the foundation brings an original World Trade Center steel beam to communities across the country as a symbol of sacrifice. To honor the 343 FDNY heroes lost on 9/11, Tunnel to Towers is delivering 343 mortgage-free homes and continuing efforts to end veteran homelessness. Donate $11 monthly and amplify your impact with a car or land donation at T2T.org.
He's at war with woke.
Joe Concha
thinks liberals are a joke.
Joe Concha.
This is the Joe Concha Show, weekday edition, sponsored by the Tunnel to Towers Foundation. Here's Joe Concha.
All right, going Billy Joel tonight as our featured artist on Concha at Night. Keep it to yourself, it's my life. Yeah. Billy Joel played Madison Square Garden 150 times. Easily the most of any artist of all time. And I never saw him. I watched a documentary with Billy Joel this weekend. I think it was on HBO. And apparently he toured with Elton John. I didn't realize this. For 17 years. That's insane. That's a pretty good 1-2 punch right there. No question. Anyway, Billy Joel will be joining us throughout the evening. Thank you for joining us tonight. So, wow. Trump just keeps playing 4D chess with Democrats, doesn't he? And now he's putting ICE agents into airports across the country in order to alleviate the lines, A, and B, obviously, bring security to airports where some people may not feel very secure with more and more TSA workers calling out. And you can't blame them, quite frankly. Now, we're coming up on 6 weeks where you haven't been paid, where you have a job that doesn't pay a lot in the first place. You're going paycheck to paycheck. And you can only take that for so long when, especially if you're a single parent, for example, and you have mouths to feed and you can't even get gas in your car to get to work. At some point, you got to say, all right, if I'm not going to be paid, I got to go somewhere else where I will get paid. So with TSA workers, there's only so long where you could ask them to sacrifice. I mean, think about how long you would go with your job without being paid in any way, shape, or form. So Trump says, okay, well, ICE, they're funded through 2029 through the big, beautiful bill, so I might as well repurpose some of them into airports. And sure enough, Democrats have gone loco on this, especially Hakeem Jeffries, who's profoundly horrible in interviews. I mean, he's just so bad. Pelosi, I'll give a little bit of credit. She could lie better, and she had a definitive nature to her, even if the words weren't honest. But Hakeem Jeffries always looks like he's in a hostage video. And here he is with, well, Dana Bash, of course. Who else would you run to in these situations? Not just saying that he disagrees with having ICE in airports, but basically just goes right to the part where they're just going to start gunning people down in airports. ICE, federal officers, really, cut 10, go.
Three things that have been true since Donald Trump and Republicans came back into power last January. Life is more expensive, life is more chaotic, and life is more extreme. The last thing that the American people need are for untrained ICE agents to be deployed at airports all across the country, potentially to brutalize or in some instances kill them. We've already seen how ICE conducts itself. These are untrained individuals when it comes to doing the current job that they have for the most part, let alone deploying them in close exposure in highly sensitive situations at airports across the country.
Siri, what's fear-mongering? Times 100? So he literally is saying that federal officers are going to go into airports that are completely chaotic because Democrats will not vote to fund the government. They've shut it down now twice in the span of 4 months. And he actually said that they could potentially brutalize or in some instances kill passengers in the middle of the airport. Again, Renee Good, the two people that were killed by ICE, Renee Good ran her car into an ICE agent and they responded. This ICE agent was dragged just a couple months before that by somebody in a car who would not get out of their car, like Renee Good would not. So when you run into an ICE officer, and I don't care what degree you run into them, once the car hits them in any way, shape, or form, and in this case, this ICE officer had internal bleeding from being struck in the hip, you have to defend yourself because you don't know if this person is going to finish the job or they have a deadly weapon. It's 2 tons. It's called an SUV. That's what Renee Good had in Minneapolis. And then as for Alex Preddy, this guy comes armed and repeatedly got into confrontations with ICE officers, and even to the point where they were physical. And at some point, when someone sees a gun and yells gun, then something bad's going to happen. So don't give me this crap like Hakeem Jeffries is, that ICE officers are just going to go into airports and just turn it into a turkey shoot, just start picking off passengers at their will. And that's the way they're demonizing these officers, because they are completely out of options here. For the 150th time, they continue to take the unpopular side against a popular side because they can't run on any issues. They can't run on affordability. If I got to hear about that one more time. They were in control for the better part of the Biden administration, and every single one of them voted for the Inflation Reduction Act. Trillions in spending that led to higher inflation. All of them own those votes. And they're saying, put us back in power for what? For another Inflation Reduction Act? Every Republican should run on that. Attach them to Biden and that economy, and you'll be just fine. And as for opposing ICE, again, these are people that are making American cities infinitely safer. The president today was just at a safety conference, we'll call it, in the city of Memphis. Memphis had one of the highest, if not the highest, murder rate in the country when you look at it per capita, per population in terms of percentage, right? New Orleans was high up there as well. Baltimore high up there as well. They're all run by blue mayors, but they're in red states, not Baltimore, but the other two in terms of New Orleans and Memphis. And now crime is down in Memphis by more than 70% because the National Guard went in there and because ICE agents are clearing out dangerous criminals who entered the country illegally, whether they're now in gangs or whether they're murderers or rapists or whatever. This is working. And if we had an honest media that would report that fentanyl deaths are way down and fentanyl is practically at zero in terms of the amount that's coming into the country, as are illegals in general. And we have a murder rate that is currently at a 126-year low. If we had a media that would report those things a little bit more, maybe the president's approval rating would be above 43, 44, 45%. But that's the hand that you're dealt when you're a Republican, especially when you're Trump. Meanwhile, Dan Goldman, the guy who once went on national television before Trump was assassinated and said that Trump needs to be, quote, eliminated, unquote. That's not like voted out. Eliminated, boy, what could that mean? Anyway, this POS, he also was on national television, this time on MS, whatever it is now, talking about how ICE is now being sent to airports to terrorize passengers like Freddy Krueger. This is cut number 14. Go.
This is Donald Trump yet again falling back to what is his only play, which is to double down, to dig in, to send more ICE officers out into our airports now to terrorize our passengers waiting in line for hours.
What do you think ICE is going to do? You're waiting in line with your kids and you got some carry-ons and then some ICE agent's going to come from behind and shiv you? It's going to put you in a headlock? Death grip? The way these guys talk, you could see why they liked open borders, because now they're talking about the very people that are risking their lives to deport all those types of people I just talked about earlier. Dan Goldman, that's great. I'm sorry. I just get the feeling, it's not a feeling, this is definitive and it's cold, hard fact. The fact that Democrats prey on dumb people or gullible people who are stupid enough to believe this sort of thing, which is why you run to a network like MS Now. And again, wait time now currently at Hartsfield in Atlanta, where at 5 a.m. they had waits of more than 6 hours to get on a plane. The flights, domestic, you can't find a 6-hour flight that's domestic in this country. Unless you're going to Hawaii from New York, I guess. But when the wait is much longer than the flight, let's say you're flying to Florida 3 times as long, well, that's a problem. Well, now it's under 40 minutes, which ain't great, but it's a lot better than 6 hours, 5 hours, 4 hours, just to go through security once again. And we saw it at LaGuardia as well over the weekend. Just anarchy with people flowing into the parking lot waiting online. It's just so horrible. And I just wish more people would understand that this is completely and totally the Democrats' fault. And it's not government as a general term. It is one party in government that is voting again and again against funding the government so these folks can get paid. And they don't care. They don't care if they go hungry. And they don't care if a plane gets blown up as a result of not having proper security there. That's certainly for sure. Meanwhile, David Urban, who this is great. He actually said this on CNN. Doesn't really hold back here in calling the great senator of New York, I say that sarcastically, Chuck Schumer, chicken something, we'll put it that way, and says that the only reason why he's holding on in terms of this shutdown is because he knows that if he gives in and he says, all right, it's time to reopen the government again, the left wing will finish him off in terms of being the majority leader in the Senate. Even if he were to be primaried, even if he were to somehow win this, which he isn't going to, this whole shutdown, he's going to be primaried and he's going to lose. Or certainly now we're seeing in the Wall Street Journal that Schumer, people want him replaced as Senate majority leader, even if he isn't leaving the Senate or voted out of the Senate. Anyway, here's Urban. This is a great soundbite. Cut number 8, go.
Look, Congresswoman, Tom Homan was up on the Hill negotiating, trying to get this bill passed in the Senate. You've seen the White House give on lots of things, cameras, identification on ICE. The White House has given and given and given. Fact of the matter is Chuck Schumer is just a chicken, I'll say it, because he's concerned that he's not going to be the majority leader, doesn't want to pass anything that doesn't just blow up ICE. And so that's why we're stuck here. It's not anything to do. Everybody knows what has to be done. Chuck Schumer won't allow it to be done in the Senate, and that's where we are. American people, call the Senate, complain to Chuck Schumer, tell them to pass the bill now.
Yeah, and you could say chicken blank on a place like CNN or even Fox or MS Now or any cable news network because that's not regulated by the FCC. So if you swear on cable news, while it seems to be happening more, you can't get fined for it or anything like that. Now, would I get a call from somebody probably saying, hey, you don't need to do that. Why do it? Because you're just going to do this to draw attention to yourself. And these things tend to go viral. And look, we just played David Urban on the show, maybe because he did say chicken blank. But his point was more the point than the expletive. But if you're wondering why you're hearing more swearing on cable news and nothing being done about it, it's because, well, in the end, the FCC can't really do anything about it. And maybe bosses over at other networks, not called Fox, are thinking this could spruce up ratings a little bit if we sound a little bit more provocative. I don't know. Who knows? Who cares? Anyway, Joe Scarborough, meanwhile, he's the highest paid male over at MS Now. He's the host of Morning Joe. I guess it's named after him. Now, here's the thing. When it comes to the SAVE Act, Democrats are dying on this hill that it really is impossible for Americans to find their old birth certificates. And not because like it's in a house or locked away in some filing cabinet somewhere, but it's just impossible to get a copy. You know. And I'll explain how easy it is on the other side of this break, but or this cut, I should say. But let's hear from Scarborough. It is, and this is actually, who was it? That guy who plagiarized all the time, and Mike Barnacle. Yeah, that's right. Plagiarism with a capital P for the Boston Globe way back when. Of course, he's now on Morning Joe and MS Now, and here he does like kind of like a lightning round of, can you find your birth certificate? And everybody apparently can't around this table, which is just the funniest thing ever. Cut number 20, go.
What about voter ID, Mike? Let me ask you a question. Could you find your birth certificate? No, I couldn't. Could you find your birth certificate?
And it's required. This is, Trump said
Schumer.
He said this is the way I win. He knows he's getting killed.
It's
on
to bag an election.
It's to bag. It's to cheat and steal the election in a different way than he did in 2021.
I'd like to ask you a larger question.
Can I say?
Wait, whoa. Wow. Trump cheated to win? I thought that was a big no-no. You're not supposed to talk about cheating in elections, but Schumer just accused Trump of cheating to win. Huh. I mean, that's supposed to be sacrilege, like the third rail of any dialogue on television in general when it comes to the political stuff. But getting back to Scarborough, doesn't know how to get a copy of his birth certificate. Here's all you need to know. What city were you born? In my case, Belleville, New Jersey, Clara Moss Hospital. So then if I call the records office in the town of Belleville, and I ask them for a copy of my birth certificate, they will give me one. That's it. That's how it works. That's how that goes. You'll probably have to show a driver's license or a passport or some form of ID. But the fact that these people are saying that they don't know how to get a copy of their birth certificate, it literally is one phone call, you morons. So they're knowingly lying to you. Anyway, it's Billy Joel night here on a Monday night on Concha at Night. Back with so much more in just a moment. I still belong. Don't get me wrong.
You can speak your mind, but not on my time. I don't care what you say anymore.
He's at war with woke.
Joe Concha
Thinks liberals are a joke.
Joe Concha.
This is the Joe Concha Show, weekday edition, sponsored by the Tunnel to Towers Foundation. Here's Joe Concha.
I mean, his best song, right? Maybe. I know everybody loves Piano Man, but this is probably a close second. Anyways, Billy Joel Night on Concha at Night. Don't let it wait. Catholic girls start much too late. That's not exactly true. But anyway, let's fade out because we don't have a lot of time here, Kevin, unfortunately. Billy Joel was married 4 times, by the way. If you're wondering why, like, he still tours the way he does. That's a pretty expensive hobby? I mean, what do you call it exactly? Anyway, let's just continue with the theme that we were talking about earlier as far as Democrats saying that, it's just impossible to get a copy of your birth certificates these days, or at least find one. Here's Bernie Sanders, of course, echoing what Joe Scarborough said earlier. And hopefully we have like the Curb Your Enthusiasm theme to put at the end of this, because I think it just kind of fits. This is cut number 12. Go.
Now, you're not talking about voter ID. That's the way Trump defines it. But you're talking about, now I don't know about California's initiative, but I do know what's going on in Washington, is that some geniuses think that before you can, maybe I have it wrong here, register to vote, you need a passport or your birth certificate. Do you have a passport or your birth certificate?
At the moment?
Do you?
I do.
Right, I have, but millions of people don't. I don't have my birth certificate. God knows how I get it.
Yeah, the reason why Bernie can't find his birth certificate is because, he's got 3 homes. The Democratic Socialist somehow can afford not 1, not 2, 3 homes, or 2 more, or maybe even 3 more than you can out there if you're listening right now. Unbelievable. Anyway, before we go to break, let's play Cut 13, because this is a Chicago councilwoman. This is after a woman was shot and killed by an illegal in the Windy City of Chicago, where this happens quite often, apparently, shootings, I should say. And apparently, this only happened because the illegal was startled by the person who eventually lost their life. This was actually an argument that somebody who's elected to the city council made. Cut number 13, go.
All the time, right? And they go out on the pier, they walk around. So the kids were out doing normal things people do in the neighborhood. And it sounds like this might have been a wrong place, wrong time, running into a person who had a gun. They might have startled this person at the end of the pier unintentionally. But that's.
They may have startled the gunman, so he fired and killed them? Is she excusing that? Because it sounds a lot like she is in that clip. And, of course, that's one of those videos that politicians do in their car filming themselves, which is just beyond, I don't know. What's the word I'm looking for here? Ridiculous? Craptastic? I don't know. Nothing really coming to mind. Anyway, this is Joe Concha. This is Concha at Night. Back with so much more in just a moment.
This is the Joe Concha Show, weekday edition, sponsored by the Tunnel to Towers Foundation. Here's Joe Concha.
Welcome back, everybody. So, I love this clip because it's just so perfect in terms of why people trust the media so much. The media has a lower approval rating than the Dead Sea right now. All right, it's low. It's not good, and the reason why is because a Zohar Mamdani can go on PBS, which used to be your tax dollars. Thankfully, that's not the case anymore. And instead of being asked about, hey, your wife said some things on social media that appear to be celebrating terrorists and seem to be happy about that whole October 7th thing, and has said some very disparaging things using the N-word as it applies to blacks, and has said some pretty nasty things about Jews and about gays. Hey, Mr. Mamdani, your thoughts? And, of course, his answer would be, well, she's not a public figure and she's her own person. No, actually, when you live at Gracie Mansion, those are taxpayer dollars that you and your wife are living in. Therefore, she is a public figure. And, oh, by the way, if this were, I don't know, Casey DeSantis, when it comes to Ron DeSantis, or we're going to compare like mayors to governors, first ladies in general, a Republican mayor or governor, absolutely the first lady would be under a lot of scrutiny for social media posts, especially with some of the utterly disturbing things that she's written. And then obviously Melania Trump, if they found something from when she was a young adult. Think Brett Kavanaugh when he was running or was nominated for the Supreme Court. And literally you had journalists, and I say that in scare quotes, going through his yearbook to find anything nefarious that he may have implied or said. And he was even accused of basically rape of a woman, Christine Blasey Ford, at a party during sophomore year where no one can corroborate what she said, and she still got in the cover of Time magazine and was hailed as a feminist hero. So, yeah, when you say, well, when you do something when you're 16, 17 years old or retweet or say something on social media, it kind of doesn't count because you're still young. No, actually it counts. And this is the Democratic playbook that we're going by at this point. Anyway, here's Mamdani on PBS, and these are the types of questions that he is getting, which are... I can't even call it softball. It's like T-ball when you put a beach ball on the tee. This is cut number 3. Go.
I put forward a plan to build more housing than New York City has seen in any single housing development since the early 70s. Alongside that, I also made clear to the president, as I have before, my continued belief that ICE raids are cruel and inhumane, that they do nothing to advance the cause of public safety.
Oh, yeah. They do nothing to advance the cause of public safety, except expel rapists, murderers, child traffickers, sexual predators, gang members. But under Mamdani's utopia, those folks can all stay because we know what side he comes down on when it comes to illegal immigration, which is complete open borders and then have you pay for everything when it comes to hotel rooms, meals, transportation, remember, free busing. So, yeah, this guy obviously does not live in anything resembling reality, and reality is about to smack him in the face very, very hard because all these things that he says are for free, whether it be that free busing I just talked about or whether it be free child care in the city of New York, which will cost, what, $10 billion? When we already have billions in terms of a budget shortfall and gap, and all that tax revenue is running out of the state. It already has, and it continues to do so. Why wouldn't you go to Florida where you don't have to pay state income taxes? Why wouldn't you go to Texas? No, by the way, it's safer. The culture and quality of life is infinitely better. And, oh, by the way, a lot warmer. And you have a pretty decent coastline. Well, you don't in New York, but you can only enjoy it about 3 months out of the year, right? So, yeah. Again, these are the questions that Mamdani gets on PBS. ICE is bad, but how bad are they? That's basically what we're seeing there at that point. Anyway, Guy Benson makes a very good point, my colleague over at Fox. And he talks about Zohran Mamdani's and his wife and her social media posts. And he makes a great point about, I don't know if you remember this, Sam Alito, who is a Supreme Court justice. Somebody decided to go down to his beach house at the Jersey Shore to check out what kind of flags they were flying outside of their house. And one was an upside-down flag, which is basically a way of protesting. And because Alito wasn't there, but his wife was, therefore Alito should be taken off the Supreme Court. This was an argument that was being made at the time by some in media and by Democrats because his wife flew a flag upside down at their vacation home. So before we start talking about how first ladies aren't public figures and they shouldn't matter, again, these are the rules that were set forth by Democrats way, way back when, where a first lady and her comments and her actions absolutely are fair play. And whoever a mayor is or governor or president or congressman or senator, they deserve to be asked about them. That's all we're saying here. And here's Guy Benson making this point exactly. Cut number 18, go.
The First Lady of New York City is not a private figure by definition at this point. And it came out recently that she had liked a number of social media posts celebrating the October 7th massacre of nearly 1,200 people in Israel, including rape denialism and a lot of very ugly stuff. Then there was a subsequent story about her social media footprint going back to her teenage years and early 20s, where there was some slurs that she was engaged in against gay people. She used the N-word in one post as well. A lot of people saying, oh, well, that's ancient history. She was a teenager. We shouldn't be doing cancel culture going all the way back. I tend to agree with that. But also in her teens, she was celebrating terrorism and terrorists in those posts, which she has continued to do in her adult life. And now she's the First Lady of New York City. I think this is a valid news story. There seems to be very little media appetite to ask any questions about it, including of her. She's a grown woman. She can speak for herself if anyone bothers to ask. I just remember the media did tell us that a Supreme Court justice's wife's flag was a national story. So this seems like fair game to me.
Exactly. Meanwhile, that's the thing. PBS didn't ask one question to Mamdani about his wife's post. And Mamdani, the tough New York media, yeah, pat yourselves in the back, guys. All the questions he took last week, not one question about her post. Only the New York Post, as far as publications, has been covering this. A reporter, John Levine, has done a great job in unearthing this social media footprint, which is the size basically of Shaq's foot at this point. It keeps getting bigger and bigger. Meanwhile, some controversy around the president's reaction to the death of Robert Mueller. Mueller, of course, former FBI director, special counsel during Trump's first term, looking into Russia collusion and Trump colluding with the Kremlin to steal the 2016 election. And the reason why I'm using that voice in completely total sarcasm, believe me, is because, the problem is that after 3 years of investigation, which ate up 3 years of Trump's first term, and again, time is the most precious thing for any president, Mueller came up with nothing. It's not like he didn't have the resources, and he certainly had the money. But in the end, Mueller, who was kind of like Biden, because when he eventually had to testify about all this, sounded very Biden-esque in terms of another brain that had turned applesauce, and he was obviously the elevator wasn't going to the penthouse at that point. But anyway, when Mueller passed away, Trump put out a true social point saying that he was glad that he was dead because he can't hurt anybody anymore. So let's do a little flashback here. This is Rush Limbaugh talking about the Mueller probe. This is when Rush was still alive, of course. And I think Rush nails it perfectly as he always used to. Cut number 2, go.
We have been lied to ourselves. We have been misled. We have been misdirected by a willing accomplice drive-by media working with Robert Mueller and his staff of anti-Trump lawyers and the entire Democrat Party combined with the Washington establishment to create in the minds of the American people a story that didn't happen, couldn't happen, nobody can ever prove did happen. Where is the tampering of votes? Where is the meetings? Where is the strategy? Where is the evidence that Trump got together with Russians to sabotage the Hillary campaign, which is what everybody has been led to believe happened here? Robert Mueller has nothing because there is nothing on what everybody in this country has been misled to believe for the past 2 years.
And the Mueller report proved that. So that's Rush's comments before the Mueller report even came out. Meanwhile, Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, was on with Kristen Welker, Meet the Press, NBC News, and he, of course, was asked about Trump's Truth social media post about Mueller's death. And I think Bessent, again, this guy is unflappable in these movies. It's almost like a movie. In these segments, this is cut number 7. Go.
Ask you on a different topic about a post by President Trump from yesterday responding to the death of former special counsel Robert Mueller. He posted this, quote, "Robert Mueller just died. Good. I'm glad he's dead. He can no longer hurt innocent people." Do you think it's appropriate for the President of the United States to celebrate the death of an American citizen, someone who's a Bronze Star, Purple Heart recipient and who served in Vietnam?
Kristen, I was with the President in the green room at Davos, and there was a video playing of what may have been an illegal raid on his home at Mar-a-Lago. They are going through his wife's wardrobe, and I watched the look in his eye, and I think that neither one of us can understand what has been done to the president and to his family.
But to the question of the president's post, I mean, Robert Mueller didn't order that raid. Is it appropriate for the president to celebrate the death of any American citizen,
again,
Mr. Secretary?
I think that given what has been done to President Trump and his family, it is impossible for either of us to understand what he has been through.
So you don't think that there's anything wrong with the post saying, good, Robert Mueller's dead?
Again, I think that we should all have a little empathy for what has been done to him and his family.
So you could disagree with Trump saying that he's glad that he's dead. But at the same time, if you went through what Trump went through for 3 years, and then after all of that, and like Rush was describing, everybody believed that the Russians actually hacked voting machines in order to change the outcome of the 2016 election. That did damage to this country beyond anything that we have seen from the inside out in a very, very long time, if ever. So you can understand why he feels the way he does. Anyway, Jen Psaki, meanwhile, if you're wondering about rhetoric and people wishing death on people. Well, Jen Psaki literally was on MSNBC, that's what it was called at the time, and basically saying that, maybe when Trump dies one day, he's not a young man. Maybe that's not the worst thing in the world. Again, anybody who's clutching their pearls over Trump's social media post about Mueller needs to look in a mirror in a hurry. This is cut number 9. Go.
I think many of them want to be close to power. They also assume or have this thought in their mind that maybe Donald Trump will go away. Maybe he'll go to jail. Maybe he will die, not to be too morbid, but maybe, I mean, he's not a young man.
This person used to be White House press secretary and then somehow generated a bidding war between CNN and MSNBC for her services for hot takes like that. So good job, Peppermint Patty. Meanwhile, I do love this clip because it's so true when we talk about our elections and the fact that things have really gotten out of control as far as when you can vote and how you can vote. In other words, it's called Election Day, right? And I understand if you're older, you're a veteran, you're out of the country, then yeah, mail-in voting should be allowed in special circumstances, right? Or if you want to say, all right, maybe some people have jobs where it's hard to get away to vote within the hours that you have to on a specific day, then fine. I'm willing to say that you could do mail-in voting for 2 weeks. I think that's pretty fair. I think 2 weeks is long enough to mail in something, right? It doesn't take too long. Fill out a ballot, get to a mailbox and mail it in. 2 weeks. Instead, we have early voting that extends now more than 10, 12 weeks before an election. Why does everybody need so long? Why is this such a difficult thing to do? It's probably one of the easiest things you could do in life. But here's a Supreme Court justice that we mentioned earlier, Samuel Alito, talking about why it's called Election Day for a reason. Cut number 11, please go.
We have lots of phrases that involve 2 words, the second of which is day. Labor Day, Memorial Day, George Washington's birthday, Independence Day, birthday, and Election Day. And they're all particular days. So if we start with that, if I have nothing more to look at than the phrase Election Day, I think this is the day in which everything is going to take place.
So the president wants 1 day for elections only, no mail-in ballots, paper ballots only. I get the premise around all of that because other countries do that and we get our election results back quickly. Instead, in places like California, it takes weeks to count certain districts, certain towns. Why? Why does it take weeks? I think we all know why. And the longer a count takes in any election, the more that suspicion goes up and up and up. We need elections where that night, early that next morning, we have our results out of all states. And by doing it in this convoluted way that we do, it takes days and weeks, and that in what should be the superpower, lone superpower of the world, not to be able to do that is a whole bolt of wrong. Anyway, this is Joe Concha. This is Concha at Night. We wrap this puppy up in just a moment.
This is the Joe Concha Show, weekday edition, sponsored by the Tunnel to Towers Foundation. Here's Joe Concha.
Welcome back, everybody. So I love finding clips from old late night because the new late night under Colbert and Kimmel, Seth Meyers is insufferable stuff where you get to listen to Bernie Sanders or Gavin Newsom or Kamala Harris or Elizabeth Warren talk about filibusters and government shutdowns and Trump being a threat to democracy. In other words, not very entertaining, to say the least. I'd rather have a root canal without Novocaine before I have to watch this stuff. But it used to be great at one point. And here is the great Robert Duvall, who just left us recently, unfortunately, but one of the great actors of all time. I think all of us could agree on that. Not just the dramatic stuff like The Godfather, but also did a lot of comedies as well. So this guy had complete range, and he shows it here with David Letterman in 1993, talking about a certain kind of belt that they had on the set of The Godfather. This is a great story. Cut number 16, go.
A lot of fun.
Yeah. Marlon Brando, you started to do a little impersonation there of Marlon. Yeah. What was that like?
Well, we had some good times on, on The Godfather. Yeah. We actually had a mooning contest.
A mooning contest?
Yeah. Somebody presented us with a world championship mooning belt.
Now, explain for us the competition. What was the nature of that?
Well, we were on
exactly?
Staten Island, and we both went for our pants, our belt, and Coppola said, no, the children here. And, so we went through with it, and we dropped our drawers and mooned everybody, and some woman said, Mr. Duvall, I'll love you behind, but all the balls on Brando.
Oh, boy. Yeah. I mean, can you imagine Brando then actually approaching that woman and saying, I'll give you an offer you can't refuse? I'm never doing that again. Oh, man. But who knew? Brando had big shamrocks, big, berries, twig and berries. Yeah, actually, that's not surprising at all. Not even in the least. Meanwhile, Richard Dreyfuss, another great actor, Mr. Holland's opus, obviously. Jaws 1, Jaws 2. American President, he was very good in as well. I could go down the list. But Dreyfuss here is talking about the new inclusion standards for the Oscars, which includes having a certain number of minorities in the film, for example. So a movie like, I don't know, Titanic couldn't be nominated because too many darn white people on that ship. I mean, it just ridiculous stuff. Like you have to have LGBTQ and you have to have a certain amount of minorities working within your production staff, and just it's everybody gets a trophy, clearly. Now that's why you have all these films being nominated that no one's ever heard of before, because the standards are nearly impossible to achieve just based on merit. Anyway, here's Dreyfuss, again, Democrat at one point in his life, talking about those new inclusion standards. And there's a V word that comes to mind when he was asked about them. Cut number 5, go.
Starting in 2024, films will be required to meet new inclusion standards to be eligible for the Academy Awards for Best Picture. They'll have to have a certain percentage of actors or crew from underrepresented racial and ethnic groups. What do you think of these new inclusion standards for films?
They make me vomit.
Why?
Because this is an art form. It's also a form of commerce, and it makes money, but it's an art. And no one should be telling me as an artist that I have to give in to the latest, most current idea of what morality is. And what are we risking? Are we really risking hurting people's feelings? You can't legislate that.
Precisely. Thank you. Richard Dreyfuss. And you wish that more Hollywood folks would stand up and say that, but they're afraid of being blackballed and not being in any film whatsoever. And Dreyfuss is at a FU stage of his life where he could say these things, but still, yeah. I mean, that's why. Can you even name now? It's only 8 days since the Oscars. Which picture won Best Film? Can you? Probably not, because none of you saw it. That's the way it goes now in Tinseltown. Anyway, it's Allentown. Wow, look at that. Billy Joel Night here on Concha at Night. Thank you so much for tuning in. We're back tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Eastern Time on WABC in New York and on stations around the country. Until then, got 2 words for you, and it ain't Allentown. It's bye-bye.
In this 25th anniversary year of September 11th, the Tunnel to Towers Foundation continues to honor America's heroes. Heroes like Fire Lieutenant Michael Wells, who was inspired by 9/11 to serve his community. After 14 dedicated years of service, he lost his battle with occupational cancer, leaving behind his wife, Katie, and their 3 children. Tunnel to Towers honored Lieutenant Wells by paying off the family's mortgage in recognition of his sacrifices. Donate $11 monthly and amplify your impact with a car or land donation. Go to T2T.org.